As everyone is here, so let's get started. Good afternoon to one and all. Hope you all are doing well in this contagion calamity. I, Ms. Tejaswini Tadge,
and I, Ms. Mayuri Agrawal,
shares a great pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of NIPER-Ahmedabad. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today for the webinar on testing of medical devices for orthopedic implants and its accessories.
It's especially a great moment to have Chairman Dr. Sudhir Kumar and Shri Rajiv Nath, along with other eminent speakers, Dr. Ravi Sharma, Shri Vivek Mangal Vedkar, Dr. Kamal Bachani, Shri Pankaj Johari, and Dr. Ravinder Singh among us today. Here they're going to cover topics like challenges in testing of orthopedics implant, updation in medical device regulation, journey of orthopedics implant, industry from clinical perspective, accreditation of medical device testing laboratory, and advanced rehabilitation techniques in orthopedics.
So before we start, I would like to invite Dr. Akshay Srivastava, Technical Manager and Associate Professor in Department of Medical Devices, NIPER-Ahmedabad, to welcome all the participants and speakers and to introduce to the details of the session. Over to you, sir.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I welcome all our eminent speaker and chairpersons in today's session. I welcome all our students, clinicians, and industry participants in this webinar. But before we listen to the speakers, I would like to give a brief background which led us to organize this seminar. Due to pioneering efforts of the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizers, Government of India, NIPER-Ahmedabad have established India's first cutting-edge interdisciplinary Department of Medical Devices in 2012. Since 2012, Medical Device Department at NIPER is offering MS degree and started a PhD program in 2017. The syllabus is designed in such a way that it is addressing the basic knowledge of the currently available medical devices and medical devices regulatory perspective. The students are doing their dissertation work in the various trust areas, having a market demand and having their own innovative ideas. NIPER-Ahmedabad had signed MOUs with leading industries, for example, Johnson & Johnson, Surgeon Laser Technologies, Utesia Medicare Private Limited, etc., which is helping us to develop an ecosystem for the development of a strong academia-industry relationship in India. Apart from the basic mandate of teaching, research, and developing state-of-the-art facility in academia, the other three objectives of the Medical Device Department at NIPER-Ahmedabad are to understand the medical device sector, the issues, and ultimately promote the industry in this sector. We are also keen to develop sector-specific infrastructure like incubator services, industry clusters, and requisite research facilities at NIPER-Ahmedabad. Finally, we also aim to produce trained human resources, which is required for the growth of the sector. Medical devices are so diverse that the state-of-the-art product development and testing facilities in material sciences, efficacy and toxicity testing, preclinical and clinical testing are required to provide helping hand to the industry. One such sector that NIPER-Ahmedabad has recognized is the orthopedic implant. Just for the sake of our student audience, these are the medical devices which are used to provide fixation for the compromised bone, and these implants help surgeons to replace, fix, and even strengthen the joints in the damaged areas. Orthopedic implant can be categorized under the two groups, that is permanent replacement and the temporary replacement. The permanent replacement implants are the implants for the hip, knee, ankles, shoulders, wrists, and joints of the fingers, whereas the plates, screws, pins, wires, etc. comes under the temporary implants. Orthopedic implant material that are currently manufactured are of three categories, which are metals, polymers, and ceramics. And out of all these, in current scenario, surgical grade stainless steel, pure titanium, and its alloys, and cobalt chromium are widely used materials. These implants have their relevant biological activity, they have applicable design criteria, and definitely clinically relevant mechanical properties. Overall, the success rate of these implants in current scenario is exceeding 95%. However, their longevity is compromised by fatigue, wear, corrosion, and other degrading mechanisms. Recently, the higher rate of revision surgeries have been seen, and that can have significant health risks. Thus, an appropriate testing of orthopedic implant is must to ensure the quality of medical devices. Most importantly, The mechanical testing of these orthopedic implants, which involves analysis of the implant rigidity, testing how many cycles it takes until it breaks, how the implant influences the rest of the body around it. No matter what the need of or circumstances, it is important to recognize that the way in which an implant is testing should always attempt to represent the way in which it is mechanically loaded in the body for the clinical use. Therefore, appropriate testing of orthopedic implant must include knowledge of basic mechanical and material concepts, the anatomy of surrounding body organs. So one should have insight into the design of the implant and how the implant is used clinically at all the stages. With Make in India initiative by Government of India, NIPER has taken a step forward to start the mechanical testing of orthopedic implants. I believe the faculty expertise available at NIPER-Ahmedabad, with the feedback and or if possible in the collaboration from the clinicians, we can probably offer the best testing solutions to the Indian industries to enrich the domestic market with superior product. In this today's webinar, my fellow Mr. Bachani is a retired BIS director, will provide more details about our focus on the orthopedic implants and the upcoming testing facilities. I again thank all of you for joining today's session and looking forward for an insightful discussion. Thank you very much. Yes.
Just a little housekeeping before we get started. All the participants are requested to note down their queries as we're going to collect upmosted question and then address them at the end of the session.
To make sure we are helping you as best as we can, we also have chat box to source your questions. So I request all the participants to stay tuned till the end of the session. I also request all the speakers to restrict to the time for the smooth functioning of the session. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you all Mr. Prakash Bachani, who is going to share opening remarks, program objectives, and will also discuss on the accessories in orthopedics. Mr. Prakash Bachani is currently working as a senior scientific advisor at NIPER-Ahmedabad. He has also served as scientist FN head at BIS for standardization of medical equipments and hospital planning. Along with this, he has more than 37 years of experiences in working with standard formulation, laboratory, and certification activities. He was a lead auditor of ISO 9001, ISO 13485, and ISO 45001 on quality management systems, medical devices, and occupational safety and health. He had also represented India in various IEC, ISO meetings for surgical orthopedic implants in USA, assistive products in Sweden, Kenya, Japan, Malaysia, and many more. He has also presented several papers and presentations nationally and internationally on standardization, certification, and laboratory activities. He has presented it in various seminars and conferences as well. We are proud to have you, sir. Further, I request you, sir, to proceed with the session.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, esteemed Chairman, Dr. Sudhir Kumar, Shri Rajiv Nath, eminent speakers, Dr. Ravi Sharma, Dr. Mr. Vivek Madukal, Dr. Kamal Bachani, Shri Pankaj Joli, Dr. Ravinder Singh from ICMR, and distinguished participants from reputed hospitals, experts, as well as from various clinicians. On behalf of NIPER-Ahmedabad, I welcome once again to all of you to this August gathering of eminent speakers as well as users for this webinar on medical devices for orthopedic implants testing. As well as I also request to kindly see during the session if any query is there, you are most welcome to ask us in the end so that the smooth function of the webinar is ensured. So this important seminar, which is the essential need in today's scenario, testing orthopedic implants for NIPER-Ahmedabad, the program objective is presenting expert to cover both the changes and advances in the latest technology in the field of orthopedic implants, and more important, to explain the testing methodology. All will agree that with the advancement without testing does not give the credibility required for the more vital uses. So the necessity of these testing orthopedic implants has been felt to establish safety and efficacy. It was therefore thoroughly considered and agreed by our Department of Pharmaceuticals to set up their own labs in all educational and research institutes of NIPERs all over India. Considering the great demand and manufacturing of various orthopedic implants and accessories in and around Gujarat, we are happy to share that we have identified orthopedic implants to start with, and within a short span of time, we will further strengthen the testing of other medical devices to fulfill the need of manufacturers to supply right products to the user. In this webinar, there will be direct interaction between you, speakers, and concerned NIPER officials. Therefore, I request all to utilize this opportunity not only to update oneself on the activities of NIPER, but also to clear their doubts, suggest their views, if any. Let me reiterate that NIPER-Ahmedabad is eager to take up the challenges of global competitiveness and urges all the stakeholders to work towards the common goal of quality and safety through standardization and necessary testing thereafter. I am sure that the delegations within this webinar and interaction with our delegates would help us in resolving many long-standing issues in the area of testing orthopedic implants and accessories at the national level in the first. I will not take more time, and before the conclusion, I request I will show my presentation just for a few minutes, just for information what testing we are going to take up. Next. So this is a mechanical testing of various orthopedic implants and accessories we are going to take up. First is endurance testing of implant for surgery. So for this mechanical testing, as per IS 12375 of Part 4, which is in 2018, we will take up the testing. Then further endurance testing of hip prosthesis head as per IS 12375 Part 4. For non-modular stems and hip prosthesis head as per IS 12375. For metal plates with metal heads. We will also be taking a tensile testing of metals as a raw material as per IS 1608 Part 1 of 2018 at room temperature, and further for determination of bending strength and stiffness of bone plates as per IS 14229. Next. We will be also taking up the testing for breaking dot test, screwed and asymmetric as well as symmetric threads for constant fitting as per IS 121. Implant for surgery for fatigue test also we will be taking as per ISO 12189. And implant for surgery for preclinical mechanical assessment we will be taking as per ISO 23089 Part 2. Here I would like to inform all the participants that as you know that as per Medical Device Rule 2017, which was from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the first preference was given that all medical devices shall conform to Indian standards formulated by Bureau of Indian Standards, and if IS are not existing, then only ISO or IEC we have to go, and if ISO and IEC specifications are also not there, then we will go as per the manufacturer's validated specification. So just for information, as far as orthopedics, as all you are aware, that is a medical specialty concerned with the correction of deformations or functional impairments of the skeletal system, especially the extremities and the spine. It is also associated with structure as for muscles and ligaments. Next. So orthopedic implant is nothing but is a medical device which is able to replace a missing joint or bone to support a damaged bone. It is a mainly fabricated using stainless steel and titanium alloys, for strength being inert material. Next. So internal fixation can be done with the help of these implants. Next. So this is a sketch which is showing where the position of implants are done during the various if bone or any part is damaged. Next. So various types of implants are bone, screws, plate, nail, knee, implants, hip prosthesis, spinal implants, locking plate system, surgical drills, and bone cutting instruments or bone holding forceps, etc. Next. So these are various sketches of the various implants which are used for this purpose. Next. So what is the use of implants? See, after the implementation of implants, this quality of life is really improved. And this is a sketch we have shown right from left side to right side, how the improvement is done in the system. Next. So these are characteristics of orthopedic implants. It depends on material properties or structural properties. Next. So various tests are there, mechanical tests are there, water testing and impact test can be done on these implants, and we are now first taking up the mechanical test. Next. So these orthopedic implants are used basically for spinal trauma or arthroplasty surgery. So thank you very much. This was just brief description. Of course, in detail, various speakers will give after this our inaugural address. Thank you.
Now, I would like to turn over to Dr. Rakesh Tikade, Acting Director and Associate Professor in Department of Pharmaceutics, NIPER-Ahmedabad, to address us with his session.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the nice elaboration, Dr. Bachani. First of all, a very good afternoon to honorable guests, speakers, industrial partners, faculty members, students, and all the organizing committee members gathered over here. I welcome you once again from Director Chair of NIPER-Ahmedabad for today's webinar that very rightly embark on the topic testing of medical devices, orthopedic implants, and accessories. Friends, medical devices today is a multi-trillion market, and we all know this very well. If you believe a report that recently published in Economic Times that says that India is a house of or a market of approximately 50,000 crore INR. And if you believe in another report by the tribunal that says that India is depending upon another partner countries for the import of medical devices that is inclusive of the product as well as the service, and it accounts for approximately 80% of the medical device import into our country. And if we believe this two report, that is meaning that today we are importing approximately 40,000 crore worth of medical devices in our country. As a taxpayer, to us, it looks very massive import. And with this massive import, certainly it is highly difficult. Rather than, I must say, it is highly unlikely to deliver cheaper and cost-effective healthcare to our fellow 1.3 billion Indians. I'm a pharmacist, and if I cross-talk the current situation of medical devices in our country, so I perceive that the current challenges which are being faced by medical devices industry in India today, to me, it looks like similar to the one that was faced by pharma industry in India approximately 3 to 4 decades ago. Yes, that was the same crossover point that Indian pharmaceutical industry faced approximately 3 to 4 decades ago. But now we all know proudly that India is regarded as a pharmacy of the world, right? So it is highly expected and it is highly desirable for the good of our country's development that medical devices industry in particular attain the same level that of the pharma industry in current status, right? Now, friends, we have embarked on 2022. So that means we are at the start of 2020s, a new decade. In the last decade, we have seen a tremendous growth and innovation in the field, including, say, robotics, IoTs, that is the Internet of Things, or artificial intelligence, or laser, or Star Wars, and medical device is no exception to this. So in last decade, we have certainly been successful in defining why and what for medical devices. It's just the how we need to figure out to reach a promised land, to offer safe, effective, and cost affordable healthcare to our fellow Indians, as well as fellow human beings across the world. So हम लोगों ने अभी तक के why तो आंसर कर दिया है, right? And what भी आंसर कर दिया है. That means now we know why we need to work on, why we need to embark on medical devices to reach the promised land. Now we also know that what we need to nurture to get to that promised land, right? So now it's just how that has to be figured out. And friends, today, I hope you agree with me that we are witnessing a storm of data. Andhi. But in real sense, if you are talking about bench to bedside translation, it's not just the data, but a reliable data, that too from the front, middle, and back, which is important, which is valid as well as authenticated, right? And this is where the need as well as requirement of a testing ecosystem comes into the picture. Today, the aspiration of medical devices is definitely, undoubtedly exceptional. But again, we need to travel far to explicitly reach the promised land. And as I said, we are not aiming to meet the requirements of just our 1.3 billion fellow Indians, but also we are aiming to, support the medical requirements across the globe. And if you connect the lines of this today's, I just narrated few lines. If you connect that, the event which the team of NIPER-Ahmedabad is organizing is just reflecting and one such opportunity and effort. And with this, I would like to thank our today's speakers and resource persons, Dr. Sudhir Kumar ji, Shri Rajiv ji, Shri Vivek Mangalwadkar ji, Shri Vineet ji, Kamal Bachani ji, Dr. Pankaj, Dr. Rajvinder Singh ji, and of course, the organizing committee of NIPER-Ahmedabad, including Shri Prakash Bachani ji, Dr. Govinda Kaposetti, Dr. Akshay Srivastav, and all organizing committee member and everyone who took part beyond their boundaries in making this event happen. I request everyone gathered over here to please give huge round of applause for the organization of today's webinar. So please join me, and I welcome you once again on behalf of NIPER-Ahmedabad, and I wish you all a very fruitful and useful time with today's webinar. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, doctors.
Now I request Dr. Pallab Bhattacharya, Acting Director and Dean of NIPER-Ahmedabad, to take a charge for inaugural address.
So good afternoon, esteemed Chairman of our technical session, Dr. Sudhir Kumar, who is also Chairman of Ortho Committee, BIS, Head Ortho Surgeon, Shraddha Hospital, Mr. Rajiv Nath, Forum Coordinator, Association of Indian Manufacturers of Medical Devices, and Managing Director of Hindustan Syringes, Expert eminent speakers, Dr. Ravi Sharma, Deputy Director Controller, CDSCO, Shri Vivek Mangalvedkar, Director, SH Pitkar, Orthotools, Pune, Dr. Kamal Bachani, Director, AO Specialty Center, and Senior Orthosurgeon, Moolchand Hospital, Dr. Pankaj Johari, Joint Director, NABL, and Dr. Ravinder Singh, Scientist, ICMR, Mr. Prakash Bachani ji, Scientific Advisor, NIPER-Ahmedabad, and ex-scientist staff and head, Medical Equipment and Hospital Planning Department, BIS, all participants as doctors, manufacturers, institutions, users, regulatory bodies, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of myself and on behalf of NIPER-Ahmedabad, welcome you all in today's webinar, which is testing of medical devices for orthopedic implants and accessories at NIPER-Ahmedabad. As you all are aware about the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Ahmedabad, a research institute under the Department of Pharmaceuticals, Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Government of India, and is constantly supporting scientists to excel in pharma innovation and encourages entrepreneurship among the faculty, staff, research scholars, and students. NIPER-Ahmedabad offering MS, MBA, and PhD program in the field of pharma and medical devices. NIPER-Ahmedabad also has close association with various government pharma associations, industries, and regulatory agencies. With the increasing demand in the field of healthcare, necessity was felt to strengthen the scope for testing of medical devices. Since medical devices benefit patients by helping healthcare and provide diagnosis to treat patients effectively, these devices help patients to overcome sickness or disease, improving their quality of life and so on. To overcome significant potential for hazards, medical devices must be safe and effective with reasonable assurance. Medical devices vary in both their intended use and indications for use. Examples range from simple low-risk devices such as tongue depression, medical thermometers, disposable globes, etc., high-risk devices that are implanted and sustain life. One example of high-risk devices are those with embedded software such as pacemakers and which assist in the conduct of medical testing, orthopedic implants, and prostheses. With the great initiative taken by our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Modi ji, to have Make in India drive, it is necessary of time to manufacture and so to test medical devices in India. Further, as Bureau of Indian Standards has formulated more than 1,500 Indian standards on medical devices, we have initiated the work to develop our lab for testing of orthopedic implants and their accessories, as well as for nitrosamine impurities. Slowly, we will extend and strengthen the testing of various medical devices to fulfill the need of manufacturers to get right product to the users. Since all our valuable speakers and participants have wide knowledge about our institution, as well as about the emerging need for testing of orthopedic implants and accessories, so I will not take more time, and once again, I welcome everyone with a request to have interaction with speakers as well as with NIPER-Ahmedabad faculty. Through this webinar, we wish to take the feedback of all the experts, doctors, stakeholders, so that these can be incorporated in the future work. I reiterate our commitment in increasing the effectiveness of our testing facilities and continued efforts for identifying national as well as market needs. This will also open new work areas with commitment to add real value to our relationship. With these viewers, I inaugurate the webinar and wish it grand success with close interaction among all speakers and audiences. Thank you very much.
Now, to start with the technical session, we have on chair Dr. Sudhir Kumar, the chairman of Ortho Committee BIS, and Sri Rajiv Nath, forum coordinator at IMED and managing director of Hindustan Syringes. It's our great honor to have both of you here today. Thank you for taking your precious time and join us today for the webinar. We welcome you, sir. And before starting the session, I would also like to request Dr. Sudhir Kumar to address the audience with his valuable words.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I must congratulate the Mr. Dean of National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research and the faculty members of NIPER and all the participants for making this endeavor to put in the best so far as the stepping stones for the testing of medical devices and especially the orthopedic implants is concerned. And I must say that the orthopedic implants have been manufactured in our country locally for a very long time, but there are hardly any testing laboratories available for them. And you see, if we look at the generation of stainless steel that has been made available to these implant providers, it has evolved over a time. And I think we have now the best of the steel available and the other metal like titanium. And we are now in the country itself are using ceramics and polymers. But to have a authentic testing laboratory on the various issues of the implant which is used internally in the human body is welcomed. So with these comments, we will listen to our august speakers and then dwell upon where we can put in our expertise as well as our suggestions for a better meant of improving these implant testing services. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to request Shri Rajiv Nath to enlighten us with his valuable words.
Namaskar, everyone. I'm Rajiv Nath. I'm the forum coordinator for IMED, Association of the Indian Medical Device Industry. There are three associations which are taking care of orthopedic implants. IMED is the apex body. And then there are two national bodies who take care of orthopedic implants. One is OIMA and one is FIOM. The Orthopedic Implant Manufacturers Association and FIOM, they are both represented in IMED through IMED members. So while they may be having their own specific agendas, they use IMED's platform for the national causes. Internationally, to my knowledge, as informed to me, the orthopedic implants is about a $50 billion market size. And in India, it's approximately $1 billion market size at the retail and the institution level. This is divided into three segments: trauma, spine, hip and knee implants. We've got more than 200 manufacturers of orthopedic implants in India. But how many are licensed is a big question mark. For that, the product has been under licensing regime for quite some time now because this has been declared as a drug many years back. And CDSCA would be having a more precise number as to who are the licensees available under the state or the central licensing system in the country. It was initially under the state licensing system, but it's now graduating towards the central licensing system going forward under the new medical device rules. Why this number is a question mark is because many of the manufacturers for orthopedic implants in India are in the unorganized sector. So practically anybody who's got a lathe machine, who's a machinist making auto components or any turning in any industrial area of India or any slum of India, has got the wherewithal to machine the components to make orthopedic implants, especially the components which are for trauma and spine implants. Because he can turn them, he may be having the technical skills for doing that, it's something else. Is he competent to make orthopedic implants? Is another question mark. So machining skills may not be directly related to making the product as an orthopedic implant, which is going to be used for saving human lives, or as a rehabilitation aid for people who have got an accident or an injury, whereby they need to have an implant before they can come back to normalcy. So out of the currently $750 million to $1 billion market that India has, the trauma and the spine implant is about $350 million. The hip implant is about $80 to $100 million. And the knee implant is again about $350 million to $100 million industry. This has got huge scope for expansion. And why huge scope is because a big chunk of the members of IMED are majorly exporters for orthopedic implants, especially trauma and spine implants. In the trauma and spine implants, India is doing very well. And there are many manufacturers who are making and many manufacturers who are exporting, and they take part regularly in international global exhibitions, whether at Medica in Germany in Düsseldorf, which is the largest exhibition in the world, or they take part at FIMA in Florida, USA, which is looking after these Central and South American markets, or they may be taking part in the exhibitions in Arab Health in Dubai, taking care of Middle East and the CIS countries in the African market, or the exhibitions at Thailand and Singapore, which takes care of the South Asian markets. So a good number of representatives from the orthopedic industry are normally a part of these delegations and part of the exhibitions, which shows the great competitiveness which Indian manufacturers enjoy internationally. And they are armed with CE marking, they are armed with US FDA, and of course, they have the credibility of the CDSO license, or they have the credibility of the pre-sale certificate. At the same time, amongst these exporters, manufacturers, exporters, there is also traders, exporters who are part of the contingents and the exhibitors. Now, these traders, exhibitors who are part of the contingent and who are exporting are of two kinds. One, who are understanding the issue about regulations, who understand what is CE marking all about, and they're getting the products made in their private label, and they're marketing their products internationally and their private label, and try to make sure that their subcontractor, whoever is making the product for them, is complying to the international regulatory requirements. But there are also other traders who are exporting to, I would say, Africa, Afghanistan, Iran kind of countries where the regulatory framework is very weak or non-existent. And then they are just buying the products, I would say, from Bhagirath Place or the open organized market, or Bombay or Chennai markets, surgical markets, and exporting the products over there. And this becomes the problem area. Why a problem area? Because we got now two categories of manufacturers. One category of manufacturers who are licensed by CDSO, who meet the quality requirements, who meet the regulatory requirements, who try to meet the international regulatory requirements, and try to be sincerely working diligently, even within their limited means. Why limited means? Because many of them would be having a turnover of 1 crore rupees to 25 to 50 crore rupees only. In orthopedic implants, you will not hear of companies having 500 or 1000 crore rupees turnover. Maybe Merrill may be an exception, but Merrill also is having only one division to make orthopedic implants now. I'm not very clear about Merrill's orthopedic implants division's turnover or what they make in India. They also import into India. So majority of the companies who are making orthopedic implants in India are in the SME category. Now MSME definition has been changed, but still very much it is, I would say, in the SME category. So funds are limited. investment criteria is limited, and challenges are there to meet the regulatory requirements and show compliances to regulations, whereby testing has to be done in most cases by most regulators in-house. And where they cannot do in-house, then they need to have it done testing out-house. And whether it is in terms of access to the raw materials, access to testing facilities, access to BIS standards, over the years, the various manufacturers have been coming to me with their problems and discussing their issues with me. And I've been tabling it to the various common departments, whether CDSCO, BIS, Department of Pharmaceuticals, DST or DBT, NIPER, etc. And I would say many of the departments have responded very favorably and come forward and try to help in their limited means to support the industry. The challenge which the regulators and the industry faces also is, like I mentioned before, is of the unorganized sector, whereby they have to compete with a machinist who's operating and making the components without a license in India. Time and again, we have given lists of these manufacturers who are existing in a majority of them in Delhi NCR area, in the Delhi area, Sonipat, Panipat belt. And we've supplied these names to CDSCO, not with the intention of shutting them down, but we've sought the help of CDSCO to visit these plants so that they could be educated, they could be guided to either become subcontractors of the legal manufacturers, or they become legal manufacturers themselves by upgrading their facilities and upgrading their infrastructure and their quality management system so that they meet the regulatory requirements. Our intention is not to shut business. Our intention is to upgrade them. Unfortunately, majority of them have not responded favorably. So if they will not fall in line, then of course, if they were not willing to be educated, they're not willing to apply for a license, they're not willing to get registered. If somebody's applied for license, he's not achieving the license, I can understand. And the association and the government can try to support him. The challenge comes when the person is not applying for a license, doesn't want to apply for a license, but wants to operate under the radar. That becomes dangerous because then you are making a product which is not traceable. It's being going to the market. It's also being exported by traders who are not looking at quality or specification or labeling, but they're looking only at pricing. And then this informal, not certified quality is being exported. And then this creates havoc in the international market because the prices of such components which come into the market, whether Indian market or the overseas market, are naturally not the fair pricing for the fair quality. And then this puts the credible manufacturers into an odd position. Also, they get challenged because when such components become prevalent in certain markets like Syria or Afghanistan, then the high quality manufacturers find it very difficult to enter and penetrate the market or create a brand of their own as Indian brands in that market over there. Around 5 years back, Department of Commerce had called a meeting, and over there this issue was discussed. EPC was present, IMET was present, and that time the Joint Secretary concerned, Mr. Ravi Kapoor, who became subsequently the Textile Secretary, was very supportive, and he said that why don't we create a fund, and he called DOP and he called NIPER and gave them that there is a possibility to finance laboratories under this fund and the scheme under the Government of India from Department of Commerce for creating laboratories. And it has taken, that time NIPER had a space available, land available, and they immediately came forward and volunteered to put this up. So I was very excited. It has taken 7 years journey nearly from that period of time to come to this level where we are going to be launching this laboratory now. I appreciate the perseverance. I appreciate that in an institution it's not easy to get support from the Ministry of Support for funding and to take the process forward. And then technical challenges are there because NIPER is basically a pharmaceutical-led organization. They have limited knowledge in medical devices, which is still coming up for them. They have limited knowledge in orthopedic implants, which is still coming up for them. So now, of course, they are augmenting their faculty. More people are coming in. Somebody like Mr. Bachani, who's the ex-head of the MSG of BIS has joined them, a good scientist. So hopefully the ecosystem will be evolving. The clusters which are available for orthopedic implants are mainly in the Delhi NCR belt, or in the Gujarat, or in the Bombay-Pune belt. We got 3 clusters in the country. So all these 3 clusters, especially the ones in Western India, which are in the Bombay-Pune belt or in the Gujarat belt, can gain from the NIPER's proximity to get their products tested, to have credibility for their product quality, to show to the international suppliers that they're having the product tested at an NEP accredited laboratory, which is owned and operated by the government of India. So it is credible testing and not a fake or an authentic CE certificate or a fake or an authentic US FDA label or a fake or an authentic ISO certificate of ISO 1345 being given. Unfortunately, in India, we have got these shops which are operating. Now that the medical devices have come under regulations, we will seek the support of CDSCO, the Ministry of Health and the Government of India in curbing such proliferation of unauthentic fake certification and fake labeling, which is very, very dangerous for patients and gives a bad name to brand India. Thank you, NIPER, for coming forward to take up this challenge. Thank you for helping the industry. We look forward to working with you, and we assure you from IMED that whatever support NIPER needs to make this into a success, it will always be forthcoming from IMED. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to take an opportunity to introduce you all to our next eminent speaker, Dr. Ravi Sharma. Dr. Ravi Sharma is currently working as Deputy Drug Controller at CDSCO, FDA Bhavan, New Delhi, where he is heading the Medical Device and Diagnostic Division and also looking after the regulation of medical device and in vitro diagnostic. Now I request you, sir, to enlighten our audience with the updates in medical device regulation.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. So at the outset, I'd like to thank NIPER-Ahmedabad for inviting me to have a talk over the regulation of medical devices. And I really congratulate NIPER-Ahmedabad for taking this responsibility to test the orthopedic implants. And you all are aware that orthopedic implants are under regulation since 2005, but we don't have any full-fledged laboratory to ensure the quality of the product. So if you can share my presentation, madam, so I can start my this PPT.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So my presentation covers the introduction part, the regulation of medical devices. What are the salient points of MDR 2017? What are the achievements of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and CDSCO? And what are the new notification under the medical device rules? Next slide, please. As you are aware that the total market size of the medical devices and IVD is approximately $11 billion US. The projected growth rate is 20%. And as rightly said, the earlier speakers, that we are dependent on the import. The 75% of the total market size is imported from outside, from other countries. Currently, the notified medical devices and in vitro diagnostic kits are under regulation. There are more than 1,000 manufacturing sites of medical devices and more than 2,200 units of the IVDs are in India. There is 100% foreign direct investment for the medical devices and no price control except cardiac stent and knee implants. And let me clarify that this price is dealt by the NPPA, National Pharmaceutical Pricing Authority, not by Ministry of Health. Next slide, please. So the Medical Device Rules 2017 was framed and drafted with the series of the meetings with the stakeholders. And this was published in 2017, and that was effective from 1st of January 2018. Recently, we have amended issued some notifications regarding the phase-wise regulation of the medical devices. And I will take this notification in my next slides. Next slide, please. So the scope of the medical device 2017 rules is the substances used for in vitro diagnostics. All in vitro diagnostic kits and reagents are under regulation, including surgical dressing, surgical bandage, surgical staple, surgical suture, ligatures, blood and blood components, collection bag with or without anticoagulant solution, the mechanical contraceptive, the disinfectants, and the devices which are notified under the Drugs and Cosmetic Act from time to time by central government. What are those medical devices? You can see in the next slide. Next slide, please. So have a look. These are the medical devices which are under regulation, which are notified, and license is required for manufacturing and marketing the product. So if you see from serial number 1 to serial number 15, these medical devices used to be regulated from way back from 2005. Ablation devices we notified in 2016. Next slide, please. From 16 to 23, these products used to be regulated as drug previously, but when this medical device rules came in force for implementation, these products are regulated as a medical device as practices followed internationally. Serial number 24 to 27, 4 medical devices were notified in implement under regulation from 1st January 2021, and these are under regulation. From serial number 28 to 37, these are the medical devices which are under regulation, and currently from 1st April 2021, these are under licensing regime. Next slide, please. So these are the categories of the medical devices which are currently under regulation. So your audience must know which devices needs manufacturing or import license. Ultrasound we have taken under licensing from 1st November 2021. So as of now, 37 categories of medical devices are under licensing regime. Next slide, please. The medical device rules is comprised of 12 chapters, indicating specifying various requirements. Like if you see most important, the schedule 4, the manufacturing of the medical devices, the suspension, the cancellation. The chapter 5 talks about the import of the medical devices. Chapter 6, like labeling requirements. Chapter 7 about the clinical investigation. If the medical device is new, then what steps we have to follow. That is in chapter 7. Chapter 8 is whether the predicate device is not available in India. So these are the 12 chapters which covers this medical device rules. Next slide, please. These are the 8 schedules supporting the chapters. What are the requirements? What are the documents needed to apply to CDSCO for manufacturing license, for import license? The schedule 2 talks about the fees. What is the fees? The 3rd schedule about the notified bodies, because class A and class B are audited by the notified body which are registered by CDSCO. 4th schedule talks about the requirements of the documents for manufacturing and import license. And 5th schedule is very important about the quality management system. The 6th schedule about the major and minor changes. The 7th schedule talks about the clinical investigations. Next slide, please. Next. So what are the salient points of the MDR 2017? The provisions related to the essential principle of the safety and performance for manufacture have been specified in the rules. 5th schedule talks about the quality management system, as I have spoken about. Separate provision for regulation of clinical investigation of the investigational medical device. The new device is termed as an investigational medical device, and provision is made to designate a established central government medical device testing laboratory to verify conformance with the quality standards. because NIPER may apply for the notification of the lab to test the orthopedic implants in future, so that they can take the legal sample also. Next slide, please. The most important part is that there is no over-regulation. We used to give earlier the registration certificate followed by the import license. Now the licenses are issued with the perpetual validity. There is no expiry of the license. As soon as 5 years are completed, the manufacturer or the importer are required to submit the retention fee. And if there is no action, then the license deemed to be valid. A license holder shall be liable to pay a late fee if they have not submitted the retention fee very well in time. Next slide, please. As per the international practices, all the medical devices are classified into 4 categories as per their risk associated. The low risk is the class A, for example, tongue depressor. The low moderate risk is the class B, like clinical chemistry reagents, like cannula, like hypodermic syringes or needles. Moderate high risk class C, like orthopedic implants. And the high risk is the class D, that is cardiac medical devices like heart valves. So as per the international norms, all the medical devices are regulated as per the classification, and these classifications have been published by Government of India in the website. So as soon as if the manufacturer or importer, they want to apply, they can refer to our classification list and they can submit the documents as the case may be. Next. The class A and class B medical devices are audited by the notified body, and the licensing authority is the corresponding state licensing authority. And no audit is required for class A medical devices prior grant of license. So there should be no compliance burden on the manufacturer. The audit may be carried out within 120 days after the date of the issue of the license for class A. The audit of class B medical devices has to be carried out prior to issue the license within 90 days from the date of application, and the notified body shall furnish the report to state licensing authority within 30 days. So you can see timelines are specified in the laws. So each and every stakeholder is responsible and accountable to dispose of their work allotted. Next slide, please. Class C and class D, as I talk about, that these are the critical medical devices like cardiac stent, like orthopedic implants, and the audit is carried out by our medical device officers from CDSCO. They audit the conformity assessment, the quality management system, and within 60 days from the date of application, they have to carry out. And no inspection of the medical device manufacturing site is carried out for the loan license. Loan license means if I am a manufacturer, I want to manufacture in other manufacturing site, then the site is already licensed, then no further inspection is required. After completion of inspection, this all details has to be forwarded to Central Licensing Authority, that is Drugs Controller General of India, and finally the licenses are issued. So what I'm trying to say that for class A and class B, the state licensing authority issue the licenses, and for class C and class D, the Central Licensing Authority, that is Drugs Controller General of India. Next slide, please. These slides talk about in brief, if you see the criteria of work like import of all classes is dealt by the Central Licensing Authority, irrespective of class A, B, C, or D. The manufacturing of A and B by State Licensing Authority, and for C and D, the Central Licensing Authority. Permission to conduct the clinical investigation if the device is new. If the device is clinical investigational medical device, then the permission to conduct the clinical investigation is issued by the DCGI. The sale is looked after by the state licensing authorities. The QMS, quality management system, is verified by the notified body for class A and class B, and for class C and class D, the medical device officers of CDSCO. And I like to tell you that CDSCO has notified more than 200 35 medical device officers for this purpose, for auditing the Class C and Class D manufacturing site, to have the conformity assessment as per the Schedule 5 of the medical device rules, which is at par with the ISO 13485. Next slide, please. In the medical device rules, number of definitions are covered. And just for your knowledge, just to abreast your knowledge, I like to mention that medical device definition is defined: the substantial equivalence, the predicate device, the investigational medical device, the new in vitro diagnostic, the clinical investigation, and the clinical performance evaluation, etc. Next slide, please. Standards of medical device, that is most important part. Each and every medical device has to confirm the standards laid by Bureau of Indian Standards, which is our standards forming body. If the BIS standards are not available, then ISO or IEC or ASTM, that is under process, we are considering that. And if all these medical devices specifications are not available, then the device shall conform to the validated manufacturer standards. Recall of medical devices: if the medical device is not functioning properly as it is intended, and if there is a device fault, it is a design fault, then the manufacturer has to recall the product from the market, and they have to inform to the concerned competent authority or licensing authority immediately. You must be aware that there was a hip replacement that was recalled from the market, and immediately the compensation was given to the patients also as per the initiation takes by the CDSU. Next slide, please. So new online system for medical devices functional. All the medical devices applications are received online. There is no offline system. That is most important part. The classification of medical devices is done by the CDSU in consultation with the stakeholder, and that is uploaded in the CDSU website. That will facilitate the manufacturer to apply for their applications. Grouping of medical devices and IVDs, this is already uploaded in website. As I mentioned, that notification of medical device officer and medical device testing officer have been published in our website. More than 240 medical devices officers have been notified. Next slide, please. CDSU is organizing the workshop to impart training various stakeholders like state licensing authority for the effective implementation of the medical device rules. We have also published the frequent asked questions about the medical device and IVDs. And we have also established a PRO cell in our zonal office as well as in headquarters. And if the startup, they have any problem, they can come and our PRO cell will address their issues. Next slide, please. Draft guidance documents on post-marketing, on the stability, on the overview of the performance evaluation has been prepared. And for the reference of the manufacturer, it is uploaded in our website. 17 laboratories have been registered with CDSU for testing of medical device on behalf of the manufacturer, for testing of various medical devices like needles, syringes, copper tees, and your cannula, etc. These medical device laboratories are accredited by they have the NABL accreditation from Quality Council of India. And after the audit by the medical device officer of CDSU, they have been registered with us. So if the manufacturers, they don't have the facility, they can send their sample to these laboratories, and the list is already uploaded in our website. It is available for the manufacturers. Next slide, please. That is about the new investigational medical device. If the predicate device is not available, the clinical investigation is not required when the investigation medical device is approved by the regulatory authority, either by UK, USA, Australia, Canada, or Japan. The said device has been marketed for at least 2 years in that country. Means there should be a backup, there should be a post-marketing surveillance, there should be no quality, substandard quality reporting, and the central licensing authority is satisfied the data of safety the performance and pharmacovigilance of the device, then the permission can be granted. Next slide, please. This is the Make in India, as our Honorable Prime Minister have a vision that there should be a Make in India drive. There should be, why should we dependent on the 75% or 80% on the import? And he has a 4D formula. Let me apprise you to your audience that there should be a deregulation. First D is deregulation. There should be no over-regulation. And the regulation should be uniform in all the states of our country. As I mentioned that now what license we are issuing, that is valid in perpetuality, no expiry. So there is a less compliance burden. The second D is the demography. Means if we are approving any medical device, it should be made available to each and every poorest of the poor of the person of the country. It should be affordable, it should be available, it should be accessible. The democracy means, third D is the democracy, means all the medical, whatever the rules we have framed, we have taken into consideration of the stakeholders, the academia, the government department, and the final rules were drafted. And the fourth D is the demand. If you are producing the good quality of the products, then there will be a demand, huge demand. So I have make out these 3-4 points. The policy support is very important. The infrastructure, the duty structure, the regulatory framework should be articulated, very, very transparent, and the research and development, that is most important, because new medical device should be designed to launch in the market so that our export can be increased. Next slide, please. Material vigilance program is very well established in this one Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission and Sri Chitra Trimul Institute of Medical Sciences, that is acting as a national collaborating center. And the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, they are collecting all the adverse and assays and they are analyzing, and the WHO department, the National Health System Resource Center, they are giving the technical support to the pharmacovigilance department in Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. And after analyzing the reports, whatever they are receiving, then final action has to be taken whether the particular medical devices has to be recalled or not. So we have a very well system for the adverse and assay reporting in our country. Next slide, please. So we are under MVPI, Metro Vigilance Program, more than 50 medical device adverse event monitoring center have been identified in the country. They are collecting the report, they are analyzing with the expert whether the report, whether the AE or assay is due to the medical device or due to the handling of the medical devices. They are handling with that, and they are reporting to the state licensing or central licensing authority. Next slide, please. As I was talking about the audit of the Class A and Class B, just for your introduction, we have registered more than 9 notified bodies. That is the dynamic list which we have already uploaded in our website. You can have a look, and these notified bodies, they are auditing the Class A and Class B medical devices. Next slide, please. These are the 5 central medical device testing laboratories which are notified by the central government. For example, National Institute of Biologicals for IVDs, CDTL Chennai for condoms and blood components, the CDL Kolkata for surgical dressing, surgical cotton, surgical bandages, the RDTL Guwahati for hypodermic syringes and needles, and CDTL Mumbai for intrauterine devices. So these are the central medical device testing laboratory who can accept the legal samples and they can give the reports. Next slide. Now, what are the new notification? Till date, we are regulating the notified medical devices. But what about those which are not under regulation? We don't know the quantity. We don't know the quality. We don't know the brand name. We don't know the assays and A's, what are the reporting. So Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has contemplated and advised that all medical devices should be regulated in phase-wise manner. So they have come out with the definition, and definition is in front of your screen. The medical devices which are attracting this definition, these will be under regulation. So there are more than 6,000 medical devices. So there is no need to notify in pieces and bits. Now the definition has been notified. Next slide, please. The central government has published GSR 102E for providing exemption of the medical device not notified earlier. The medical devices shall be registered with CLA through an identified online portal. First step is what? Because we cannot regulate these medical devices overnight. So first step is that, first of all, the manufacturer has to register their product on the Sugam portal. They have to give the details, the brand name, the trade name, the model number, the manufacturing site address, etc. And the registration number will be generated automatically, and it has to be affixed on the label so that manufacturer will come in the mainstream. And we have given the relaxation, the transition time. So Class A and Class B medical devices will be under licensing regime from 1st of October 2022. Till then, those manufacturers can register their product on Sugam portal. For Class C and Class D, these will come under the regulation from 1st of October 2023. So the transition time has been given as per the request of the stakeholders and the manufacturers. Next slide, please. This is the performa I was talking about for the registration, the generic name, model number, class of medical devices, and they have to submit the ISO 13485, but now it is exempted till the May 2022. Till then, our manufacturer can obtain the ISO 13485. And with these 2-3 documents, they have to register so that we should know, yes, this product is in the market. And if there is a quality problems, we can suspend their registration certificate. Next slide, please. The earlier slide was showing for manufacturer. This slide shows about the importer. The same requirements, but in case of importer, they have to submit the free sale certificate. Free sale certificate means marketing approval in that country from where this products has been imported. So I am giving the example in the COVID situation, this pandemic situation. Many importers and manufacturers, they were manufacturing the pulse oximeter. That was not under licensing. We don't know the quality, what standard they are following, what is SAE, what is for oxygen concentrator. So now all these products will be under regulation. Next slide, please. So thank you very much for your patience. I have taken you through all the amendments and the regulation. And once again, I thank you, NIPER, and we will cooperate you whenever you need any assistance from CDSCO. Definitely we will impart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to sparsely introduce to our next speaker, Dr. Ravinder Singh, who is a renowned senior scientist and is a founding director of International Institute of Stress Management and Allied Sciences, trustees of Human Care Foundation, and governing body member of International Development Center. Is looking after areas of mental health, disability, rehabilitation, and assistive technology. We are glad to have you here, sir. Now I request you to proceed with the session.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Namaskar. Let me first thank NIPER for organizing this very important session and also inviting the eminent personality from different fields. Then my duty was to, talk about the orthopedic rehabilitation devices. So I can share with my presentation. So I will be touching the topic of advanced rehabilitation technology for orthopedics. We all know that technology is very important today, and it helps us in diagnosis, treatment, and management of diseases, monitor the patient's progress remotely, as well as next to the bedside monitoring, as well as remote monitoring. Both are done through the technology, and it also helps in adherence and compliance. So just my previous speaker, Dr. Ravi Sharma, has talked about this notification, which talks about the drug status for various medical devices. So it has, pushed up the agenda of medical devices, and I think would be very helpful in near future for the patient care. So this is one classification where we are, talking about the locomotion and physical impairment or functional impairment of the persons with various conditions. And overall, these all the products of medical devices, they come under the health products. This is the proposed classification which has been accepted by WHO. So right from the starting with the medicines, diagnostics, assistive products or assistive technology, vaccines, medical devices, cell and gene-based therapy or medical technologies. So the conditions which require orthopedic rehabilitation are increasing among the older persons, are also due to injuries and chronic diseases like diabetes mellitus and hypertension, and various infections like tuberculosis of tuberculosis of spine, leprosy, or polio cases. So all these cases, they need orthopedic rehabilitation. The domains of orthopedic rehabilitation are range of motion and muscle strength around the joints, as discussed previously. So we do quantitative measurement through device with sensors or robotic technology. So these are two major categories through which the measurements are done. So these are the different type of technology as per the location. That means either hospital-based or home-based. Hospital-based technologies, they do continuous passive motion, like after total knee replacement, tested in homes also. Robotic devices, electromagnetic sensors, inertial sensors, software app, inertial, the home-based are inertial, software apps, commercial gaming technologies, video conferencing. Sometimes we discuss that the gaming is bad for us, but the thing is that the technology is a part of our life and we have to use it constructively for the benefit of our patients. So continuous passive motions are in the hospital where used after total knee replacement and has been primarily advocated to improve the knee flexion recovery. It leads through positive biological effect on tissue healing, edema and hemoarthrosis. It reduces pain and restores knee ROM and enhances functional recovery. Electromagnetic sensors is a 6-degree freedom measuring device which simultaneously also recover 3-dimensional positions and orientation of multiple electromagnetic sensors attached to the body. The reliability of ETS for measuring kinematics of upper and lower have been reported in the literature, and kinematic changes in a patient's over time, which is used for assessment of rehabilitation interventions also. Inertial sensors are accelerometers or magnetometers and gyroscopes, which collect 3D motion data, and they communicate to the computer for analysis by accompanying software. And they are used to accurately measure and assess the movement of a patient's joint during a variety of functional exercises. So basically, the idea of all these devices are to make a person functionally, appropriate, or to rehabilitate him for his work or community or for recreations. So various applications offer knowledge of medical conditions, anatomy, diagnosis information, and other treatment informations. Smartphone apps measure ROM or position sense in different joints like cervical spine, as discussed earlier, lumbar spine, shoulder, elbow, knee, and ankles. So there are machines which has been used like iPad by Apple, or software like band sizer TM for elastic band exercises. So these exercises, they strengthen the muscle around the joints. So video conferencing allows therapists to diagnose, treat, and monitor patients' progress remotely as tele-rehabilitation in the orthopedic settings. It promotes the relationship between patient and therapist, knowledge and motivation for rehabilitation, and may also reduce the cost. It drastically reduces the costs. VC may be acceptable to patient. The day-to-day workability of VC in clinical practice is not actually very practical. So day-to-day workability of VC in clinical settings is not very good, but still in many cases, it helps the patient remotely. It can, the physicians or surgeons can tell the people to do various activities or to perform various activities. So commercial gaming technologies like Nintendo Y or Xbox, they are using different technologies, including integrated accelerometers, infrared detection, and movement tracking for the purpose of detection in the balance, subtle changes in the balance, coordination and strength, and ROM of joint during functional activities. And what is the future? In the future, we will see that various virtual reality technologies would be evolved, and it can be used to personalize treatment, motivate patient, and improve the compliance as well as the treatment progress. So virtual reality will also be effective in the patient with orthopedic pathology such as ACL injury, frozen shoulder, or chronic neck pain. The electrobiography muscle stimulation devices also will be very useful in future. Pokemon Go introduced augmented reality gaming, which has very serious applications in the orthopedic technology. Holographic displays like Microsoft HoloLens or Google's Magic Leap would also be used in the medical technology in a very effective way in the future. AI prediction model for real-time decision making. Artificial intelligence prediction model will be used for decision making. Most popular area of AI research is image interpretation, which means using the image and diagnosing the fracture or osteoarthritis, bone age, and bone strength. So this is going to be a very exciting area in the future. Machine learning also a form of artificial intelligence would help in computational algorithms and learn and improve with the experience. The two main form of ML are supervised and unsupervised. The algorithm which are given labeled data which used to predict disease outcome in new patients. Unsupervised machine learning is used to identify patterns without training the algorithm learns. With this, this is a very, super specialized area which I have talked, and I think we need a lot of work in this area. And I take this opportunity for all of you to, come for our forthcoming Global Assistive Technology Expo and Conference in December 2022, where we are inviting a lot of international players, and whether WHO, Ministry of Health, and other ministries, which are all ministries which are working in assistive technologies, and where the orthopedic locomotion and functional impairments will be discussed. Thank you very much for the patient listening and giving me opportunities. Thank you.
Now, I would like to take an opportunity to introduce shortly our next speaker, Dr. Kamal Bachani. Presently, Kamal Bachani is working as a senior ortho consultant at Columbia Asia Hospital, Gurgaon. Here, as an orthopedic consultant, he has performed hundreds of joint replacements with focus on minimally invasive techniques. Currently, he is also the line member of Indian Orthopaedic Society, Indian Orthoscopic Society, Delhi Orthopedic Association, and many more. Today, he is going to cover the topic on journey of orthopedic implant industry from clinical perspectives. And for this, the co-author is Dr. Vivek Bachani. Over to you, sir.
I am not able to share my screen. The hostess to allow me to share the screen. Can you all hear me? Hello, am I audible? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Can you allow me to share the screen? I want to share my presentation.
Just a second, sir. We are just making you co-host.
Okay. So till the time I am allowed to, my screen comes up, I would like to thank the chairperson, the NIPER, who is doing such a wonderful job of organizing this symposium. Dr. Sudhir Kumar, who was our teacher in Delhi and a very eminent orthopedic surgeon, and so many august faculty who have basically spoken about today about the orthopedic implants, and Dr. Ravi actually enhanced, extended the field by including the rehab part also. So I'll be basically touching about the orthopedic implant in brief from a point of view of a clinician perspective. So for the persons who have joined the symposium late, I'll just go to the basics. What are the implants? These are the devices or tissues that are placed inside or on the surface of the body. They can be used as prosthetics intended to replace missing part of the body parts. Now, we need to understand the history a bit in order to understand that how basically history can teach us the usage of the implants in the future and standardization. So we know the Lister was the first one who introduced the aseptic concept to successfully use a silver wire in order to manage a fracture patella. Then it was basically, but Sir William, who basically placed plate and screw fixation on the sound footing by using the stout steel. And the workhorse of orthopedics, the stainless steel, was basically started in Siberia way back in 1776. But first authenticated metal and engineering and bone and joint surgery was published in 1959. So the basic terminology which has been used in the implant characteristic by industry in the form of stiffness, rigidity, elasticity, plasticity, and ductility are important criteria in order to assess and take care of the physical properties of the implant. Now, what are the good implant characteristics as an orthopedic surgeon which you require? Somebody summarized that for the sake of summary, I will put it. Then in orthopedic, basically we use implants for osteosynthesis, like in trauma. We are using for joint replacement or reconstructive surgery. We are using in tumor surgery where we are replacing the damaged part of the bone with the implants. We are using it in the spine surgery. We are using in sports surgery in order to help ligaments and tendons gain attachment to the bone and for ligaments to perform ideally. So what are the good implant characteristics ideally we would desire? They should be chemically inert. They should be non-toxic. They should have the sufficient strength to serve our purpose and have high fatigue resistance so that before the fatigue comes in, our bones and soft tissue must have healed. They should have low elasticity modulus. Absolutely corrosion proof is the basic requirement. Higher wear resistance in order to ensure the longevity. And most important, they should be affordable and easy to handle. So these are the characteristics which are required, but analysis has shown that every year the cost of the implants is rising to the tune of 8 to 10% compared to the previous years. And it is very difficult in order to control the last part, which we said affordability and easy to handle. And despite the fact that cheap implants may be available, we would not like to use those implants in view of lack of standardization. So majority of us would not like to go for the cheap unstandardized implants, but one speaker mentioned that they are in use, and we do fully agree. Now everybody wants basically a podium finish, and this actually we do get the podium finish whenever we use the standardized implants. The slide is slightly stuck. So everybody wants to use basically whenever we resort to using the standard implants, we will have a good result and a satisfactory result. But when it comes to similarly like in this lady, where despite the fact we were facing the like this is a bariatric patient having undergone knee replacement and was able to have a satisfactory result. There was some problem with the video. I think it's not running. So coming to we use not only in primary surgery, we have to resort to use of the implants even in difficult scenario like revision surgeries also. We use in biologically younger patient, which put a lot of demands on the implants also, as well as on the surgeon. And once we are able to use the things in a standardized manner, we do get citations from our patients as well as our colleagues and faculty. But for most important is what happens when we are resorting to the use of the imperfect implants. It's like we're slipping on a banana peel. And once you slip on the banana peel, your work is basically for everyone. You yourself become banana. The industry become banana, which has manufactured the implant. The person you has used, and everywhere your failures are seen, and it's a disaster for both surgeon as well as patient. So implant failure we see in orthopedics day in and day out in the form of failed implants in trauma, failed implants in joint replacement, sports surgery, and these can be predicted by use of by proper standardization, where the industry is able to sort of test these implants in various simulation in order to assess the impact loading, in order to assess the cyclical loading, and so on. Now, failure in implants in orthopedics is what does it mean actually? So, failure in implants means basically that implant was not able to function the purpose for which it was implanted, or inadequate function was served, or clinically implant failure is a failure implantation procedure to produce satisfactory results. So, there can be various causes. There can be plastic, there can be mechanical reason, there can be surgical reason. Now, surgical or clinical and post-implantation environmental lapses can also result in implant failure, but this is actually not under the control of the industry. Although various kind of CMEs, workshops, certification courses, fellowships, etc., are conducted to address even these issues on mega level. So, for what is important for industry is basically was the design of the implant adequate or faulty, which actually lead to poor quality, poor standardization of the material. Was the choice of the implant was satisfactory with respect to standardization, the strength, hardness, corrosion, and so on, or were there defects in the implant due to errors during fabrication? All these things can be addressed by industry as well as the process of standardization, which can prevent us from becoming the banana peel. So, what are the if we see grossly, like what are the failure of implant causes? It can be material, like the chemistry of the material, the structural metallurgy, the engineering design may be faulty. There are surgical causes, which I will not go into detail because this is something which is not the forum for addressing this. Can be idiosyncratic causes where both the material as well as surgical part is not in picture. There can be hypersensitivity, infection, pain syndrome, aseptic loosening, which is again a different thing altogether. There can be patient compliance and other causes also, which Dr. Ravi just took care in the form of addressing the post-op rehabilitation part, which is also an important area which needs to be addressed. Now, mechanical causes there can be plastic failure, there can be brittle failure, there can be fatigue failure. Now, so what is the way forward? If we see somebody mentioned the enormous kind of volume of the implant in terms of the economics, which is used all over the world, and in India also one of the other speaker mentioned that figure which is basically astronomical when it comes to use of implants being imported in India. And it was emphasized that unless we start using these implants at Indian level in a standardized manner, it will be difficult to reduce or pass on the benefits of the economics to the end user, both orthopedic surgeon as well as the patients. So earlier we used to have only the US FDA as the standardization, or which is used to be the sought after registration by which we used to orthopedic surgeon. We used to just it used to be a guide for us use of the imported implant use. But now with BIS, NIPER, and so many other organizations, so many standards being laid down, it is helping us to bridge the gap between the industry and end user, and helping us sort of give the desired results. Now, they can be tested under the following categories in broad: physical, chemical, structural, and biological. Now, testing of the implants is basically various kind of simulation is required, but it requires not only in vitro testing, it requires in vivo testing, and then it has to be clinically correlated. So this adds up to the difficulty compared to the conventional where all industry can do just in vitro testing. So mechanical testing of the implant to ensure that they meet performance specification. Like I mentioned, like joint replacement devices can be tested under cyclical loading, to establish the fatigue performance and wear and tear in joints motion simulator. Plate and screw can undergo bend and shear testing to determine their inherent mechanical properties. Screws can be checked for holding power of the screws. So all these tests can be done on the physical formatic, and then the appearance of the implants. And as Mr. Prakash mentioned right in the introductory part speech, that IS standards have been given for both the joint replacement as well as for the screws and trauma products. The magnetism of the implant has need to be tested, that they should be non-magnetic. The hardness and the different kind of criteria like Rockwell superficial hardness testing has been given. The impact testing or the spark testing is also required in order to adhere to the standards. Now, the friction coefficient, one of the important criteria which is used, but it is need to be understand that friction coefficient was independent of the applied normal forces and displacement rate, and it depends on the properties of the bone tissue surrounding the implant and on the properties of the implant surface. So this adds up to the question of industry basically testing only in vitro, because here we are dealing with the implants in a live scenario, which is a dynamic kind of environment. There will be bone remodeling will be there, there will be bone in growth will be there. All these factors need to be considered in order to design a perfect implant, and the implant should be biological compatible. And there are specific methods for testing even the biological compatibility of the metal for surgical implants. And now coming to the chemical testing, there is molybdenum detection test, the percentage estimation, the corrosion test, and the workhorse of the orthopedics, which used to be 316 L steel. It should contain the molybdenum between only 2 to 3.5% and low carbon. Now we are having more and more use of the titanium, and again the standardization has been done for that. Now, when we were talking about the design specification, I mentioned various kind of criteria which were mentioned in the beginning introductory lecture. For the screw as well as for the plates, different kind of specification have been laid down. The workhorse of the orthopedics, when we used to be stainless steel, but more and more titanium alloys are being used in conventional orthopedic industry, especially in trauma. And now we are having even the biological part which is getting introduced. So these are some of the differences when it comes to the physical properties as well as the corrosion resistance of the steel was 316 L steel versus the titanium alloy, which we are increasingly using. Now we were talking about the hip and knee replacement processes. Now hip and knee replacement processes contain different kind of material for different parts. So I think we need to standardize even for the different part of like the acetabulum, the poly which we are using, the metal shell which we are using, the femoral processes which you are using, the coating. So it looks like it's just a hip implant, but it does have different kind of testing needs to be done for each individual implant. as well as in composite form, so that we are, and now there are newer and newer generation of the implants are coming. So we need to standardize in order to give, so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Like one speaker did mention about the recall of the hip implant, where all over the world the implant, that particular implant was used. So as a clinician, what are the criteria which by which we judge? Even okay, fine, I am satisfied with the use of the industry given specification. We judge our by clinical assessment in the form of optimum placement, optimum function, and longevity of the implant. This important clinical data need to be shared between on a dynamic basis between the industry as well as the end user in order to basically have more and more R&D and have decreased the costing of the implant and successful outcomes. So now there is now use of more and more biomaterials in the orthopedic implants, which are basically nothing but natural or synthetic substances capable of being tolerated permanently or temporarily by the human body. There are ceramics. Now we are having ceramics, first generation, second generation, now third generation ceramics, the interactive like tentaculum material, the biodegradable polymers, repellent cultured native tissue, and so on are coming. Like HA-coated implants are also coming and are increasingly used day in, day out, especially in the younger population. We do have carbon fiber implants, which we are using in various kind of surgery like STO and so on. Biodegradable implants in orthopedics are basically nothing. They are actually allowing a paradigm shift away from the mechanical replacement engineering towards a true biological solution, which we always wanted. There are inherent problem with the metallic devices like stress shielding phenomena, which I mentioned in the, one of the slides, which can result in osteopenia as a result of removal of the typical stress from the bone by an implant, leading to pain and local irritation. Retained implants carry the risk of infection and need to remove later on. The metal ion release, which we have seen in one of the implants like metal back total hip replacement, it does have a long-term effects. Some of these were hazarded and they were removed because of this use. Now, bioabsorbable implants in orthopedics like PGA, polylactic acid, copolymers, they were first introduced in 1893 and are being increasingly used, especially in sports surgery and so many other fields. They are really the workhorse. As like in this slide where ligament reconstruction, although there is a metal plate is also used, titanium, but other implants are like in the tibia, there is a screw, which is basically PLA screw has been used in order to fix the tibial part of the ligament. Now, what are there are newer and newer basically developments are coming, as I mentioned about the biodegradable implants, which are becoming accepted norms in various subspecialties. There are porous tentaculum materials because of the high porosity, low viscous elastic modulus. These are used especially in trabecular metal shell, in joint replacement and complex revision surgeries. Patient-specific implant and instrumentation for precision based on pre-surgery analysis of distorted anatomy are new era already are being used extensively. We are having 3D printing of the implants as well as the patient-specific implants as well as patient-specific instrumentation. We are using now robotics, computer-assisted, and artificial intelligence and other new modalities of working tools. These need to be standardized to exploit its potential to full at the same time, safeguarding the end users from harm. So basically, plants represent a synergy and symbiosis between the industry and the end user, the orthopedic surgeon, and it is the need of the hour that standardization need to be done in order to basically, and standardization need to be not only done, rigidly implemented and perfected so that the patient can cross over the bridge smoothly. Thank you very much. And I think standardization is not an end to me, but is the goal itself in order to bring satisfaction to the end user and bring this level. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My slide presentation is over.
Thank you, sir. As we all know, before reaching to the market, any product has to be accredited from NABL laboratories. especially when it comes to medical product. So to brief on the same, we have our next speaker, Shri Pankaj Johri, Joint Director of NABL. Pankaj Johri is currently heading the Group of New Application Accreditation of Indian and International Laboratories and working on the projects for the development of accreditation in new areas like radiology, medical imaging, product and software testing, and many more. We are grateful to have you here, sir. And without taking much of the time, I would like to proceed you with the session.
So much thanks. I would like to be given permission for sharing my screen.
Yes, yeah, you have.
I hope it is my PPT is on the screen.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so thanks once again to everyone, especially the management of the NIPER, Dean NIPER. Sir, I think NIPER has been very instrumental so far in encouraging the research and development and different fields of the pharmaceuticals. If I take back to the previous seminar, from there, I hope there has been substantial progress in the medical device testing area. So today, I would be going to discuss about the accreditation of the medical device testing laboratory. This window is coming on my screen. Let me just wait. Just okay. So this is the NABL house. I think most of you people are very well aware about this. And you all people also would be knowing about the NABL, the origin of NABL. So I would not be talking about much, simply saying that NABL was previously established under Department of Science and Technology, and now it is under the ambit of Quality Council of India. And basically, and the mandate of NABL is that it is providing accreditation by doing the third-party assessment for the quality and technical competence of the all type of laboratory, but specifically I have mentioned here testing and calibration laboratories because currently I'm talking about the medical device labs. And about NABL also, I would say that our own system is also established in accordance with ISO IC 17021 to 17011, which is for general requirement for the accreditation body accrediting CAPS. This is very important to know for everybody to know that when accreditation body is accrediting labs, it's how its own system is being operated and how they are complying to the ISO standard or not. So yes, NABL is also complying to the ISO IC 17011. And there is a chain, a type of you can say the traceability of the accreditation. It's like that. There is a organization, Asia Pacific Accreditation Cooperation and International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, and NABL is a full member and mutual recognition agreement signatory to this. Now, what is the benefit of this? The benefit of this is that, as I in the previous slide, that test report issued by the NABL accredited labs are acceptable among all the member economies of the ILAC and APEC. So basically, this is enhancing the and facilitating the global trade. There is no need if a product is tested in an accredited laboratory, then and there is no need that when it is landing in cross frontier or it is coming from cross frontier, then again it is to be tested until unless there is a regulatory requirement or a QC requirement from the ministry. Now, talking about the laboratory accreditation, it's very important, as you know, that accreditation is kind of it's giving the credibility for your quality management system. It is giving a credibility for the technical competence of your laboratory, that the people are competent, you have the good equipment, you have the valid calculations, you are using the CRMs, etc. You have good test methods, you have validated test methods, and you are also comparing your test results with other accredited laboratories. Yeah, so this benefit of accreditation, it's everybody knows, it's basically is the reduces the technical barriers, and your test reports are the testimony of the competence and the reliability and trustworthiness, and about the valid test results. And basically, it's going to have a global acceptance of the test reports. Now, talking about the NABL accreditation system, as I told, that NABL itself complies to the 17011 standard, which is a general requirement for the accreditation body. And we totally have an online application system. So it's nothing offline. You need to, anybody who wants to accreditation from NABL, it needs to apply online on the NABL portal. And the expected time frame, we can say that average 100 days, but there are the laboratory who have taken accreditation less than 100 days also, because it depends. Accreditation is a two-way system, how the laboratory and how much it is prepared, and how much they are competent and willing to demonstrate themselves for a assessment, how quickly. And from NABL side, there is a time-bound system. So obviously, there are a few laboratories who have good system. They got accreditation less than 100 days. Others maybe more. And people would be remembering that how NABL geared up itself in the time of need, when the government was saying that there are a few test RT-PCR laboratory, and how the new RT-PCR laboratory came up for testing of the COVID, but there was a question that how whether they are competent enough or not. So there was a requirement for the NABL accreditation for these private laboratory. They got NABL accreditation, whosoever was competent, and after that they got the ICMR approval. So what I mean to say that when you are going for accreditation, so many regulatory authorities and many ministries have incorporated NABL accreditation as a benchmark and as a criteria for giving approval for their further system. Now, coming to the basic point here, when we are in this workshop, when we are talking about the medical device sector, particularly the ortho implants and other implants, etc. So let us have a look about this. Though I think Mr. Ravi from CDSCO, he has given a very good picture about the medical device sector, but still we are expecting a CAGR of 35%. And we expect that this medical device sector will grow very quickly to 50 billions in 2025. And for the same period, the diagnostic image CAGR is expected to at a rate of 13.5. See, the whole thing is why I want to talk about this particular thing is that when this medical device sector is going to grow at this particular rate, so you just imagine how many medical devices are going to enter in the healthcare sectors. So basically, why it is happening, if we have a look at this, there is a public awareness and consciousness, because pandemic has taught us that health is the first priority now. So everybody is going for the preventive medical checkup also. And if there is anything is there, means the doctor is prescribing at a very preliminary stage, the person is going for the treatments. And if talk about the implant, they are going for the implants also. There are the government schemes like Prime Minister Jan Ayushman Yojana, Ayushman Bharat scheme. Then government is giving PLI, 100% FDI, as the previous speaker also told. There are the collaboration of ICMR, IITs also for medical device setup. Already AMTZ Visakhapatnam is there, and that's almost similar kind of setups are being tried in the North India also by IIT Delhi, like that. So medical devices park have been established and some have been declared also. There is setting up National Medical Device Promotional Council. Like that, the government is giving a lot of incentives. So it is definite that medical device sector is going to grow. And basically, if you see for the Indian manufacturers, the point here is a huge market is there with the growing urban middle class population. There is a lot of gap between the supply and the demand. Overseas company investing now in India, 100% FDI is there. But the basic thing is the trend is changing. Why? Because now preference for the foreign device till now, it is now going to be converted into the vocal for the local and under Atmanirbhar Bharat schemes. So a lot of medical device manufacturers are expected to come in the country. Already, as my previous speaker told, that around 1,000 manufacturers are still are already there. But when we see that growth is up to 50 billion is going to come up by 2025, then we can simply expect that many thousands manufacturers, they are expected to enter in this market. Now, when so many medical device manufacturers, particularly the implant manufacturers, which have been unregulated. I mean, a large section of this implant manufacturer, which has been unregulated so far. So when they are entering into the market, what's the guarantee for the quality? If I were using the word guarantee, or say at least assurance, not the guarantee, then what kind of the assurance for quality is there? So if we talk about, then we would find that these medical devices would be subjected to different type of tests. Some would be to the chemical, some microbiological, some electronics testing, electrical testing, some biocompatibility, particularly implant for the mechanical and package, some mechanical testing, material testing. So if we find that testing has to be done, and manufacture system also has to be complied to some kind of a standard. So we find that there is a ISO 17025 accreditation of medical device testing laboratory there. Then QC and AIMED, they launch a ICME 13485 plus schemes also to undertake verification of the quality, safety, and efficacy of medical devices. Then the GMP was also there to ensure some kind of the good manufacturing practices in the manufacturing process. So we find that ISO 17025 is for the testing part. Talking about the medical device testing, though everyone talked about, we already understand that how much significant it is that there should be a medical device testing, because the basic point is we want to prevent our country from becoming a dumping ground, basically, for obsolete and poor quality and non-tested approved medical devices. So for that, what we want that every device which is entering in the healthcare sector for the patient and for the end user, which doctor are prescribing or doctor are using for the purpose of the patient, every device to be tested. If we are using our tested, it means it has to be tested in a accredited laboratory, a laboratory which had demonstrated that it comply and it functions in compliance with ISO 17025 standard, because ISO 17025 is the basic standards for the quality management system and for the technical competence of the lab. Now we see, go to next slide. This slide is very, I mean, kind of a hilarious slide where an employee is talking about that a person that I went to the doctor yesterday and my blood pressure was high. So the other person is asking, did the doctor conduct a measurement system analysis on the equipment before you test? Because doctor prescribed that you need to be regulated on the diet. So the person asking that, you mean rather than my diet, it could be the equipment that needs to be regulated? Yeah, the answer is yes. In most of the cases, the situation is actually it is the medical device which has been used in the hospital or which is being used by healthcare professional, it may not undergone quality testing. It may not be performing that well because the testing has not been done. And testing, this is also showing the significance of the testing, how important and significant the testing of the medical device, because otherwise the doctor would be telling you to control the diet, to do the walk, to have a run of 5 kilometers every day, instead of saying that, oh, the medical device was not performing well. Now, if I talk about testing, this is the process of demonstrating the safety and performance. So basically, why we need to test the medical device and what that process is, that it is the safety and performance demonstration in the laboratory. And more important is that testing is the critical part of the design validation for active and non-active devices, combination products and other drug delivery devices. And there are well-designed protocols actually available, which are needed for the efficient and effective delivery of the testing schemes. Now, if a laboratory is 17025 accredited and medical device is being tested there, so what does it mean? For in case of medical device, I'm saying So 17025 quality management system, then it is ensuring that the laboratory people are trained people, they are competent person, they have good logic, they are complying with the 725 requirement, and it is ensuring that you are getting the accurate result and test reports are accurate. So basically, if the accreditation in medical device testing, how it is helping the our clinical community, basically, I would say. So this is basically helping to improve the clinical effectiveness in the medical device. And also integration testing of the devices. This ensures the proper connectivity with the other devices. This also ensures that quality and effectiveness of various medical devices stay. And finally, we can say that end-to-end device testing, if it is happening, then it mitigates any risk of the device failure. A previous speaker, he was talking about the implants when that the cyclic load and how many cycles it would go before failure. Basically, this is a kind of mechanical testing which is required in the implant, where the compressibility testing, the breaking point test, all these things has to be done. Currently, in implant cases, it is under the mechanical testing when we are going for the NABL accreditation. And in one group is not specified, but in the others group it is there. But there is importance of such testing. This I want to say, yes, it is very important. Implant have to be tested for the mechanical integrity, their breaking point, the stability, the failure points, the cyclic load. So the last point is very important here. This, if you are doing a testing of a medical device end to end, then it mitigates any risk of device failure. In implant case, it's so important because once it is also implanted in the body, so the failure would happen in the body, and then it would obstruct the other metabolic function. It may obstruct other metabolic functions of the body also. The regulation parts has already been talked by CDSCO, so would not go much about this. This calibration schedule also. Now, NABL medical device testing, if I say, NABL is giving currently accreditation to medical device testing as per ISO 17025, and this is under various disciplines. There is a mechanical disciplines where it's a group performance testing. This is one NABL document 120 classification of the groups, and there is a subgroup 1.8.3, and here in the last bullet title others. So under the category of others, one can apply for accreditation because as such implants are not in our any group so far, and where we are giving accreditation, but for the mechanical testing under metal and alloys and under some to knowing the mechanical properties, etc. The manufacturers and the laboratory, they can apply for accreditation. NABL, when giving the accreditation of medical testing, it's a specific objective also, because the testing team, basically, it should work with the manufacturing team. The idea is that there should be integration of the testing and manufacturing team, because our final purpose is that all the medical devices which are entering in the healthcare sector, it should be good. So then the verification of the performance of the individual block and the validation, this is very important. So idea is that functional testing, which is so important for a medical device, and performance testing, the interoperability, the risk factor, the safety measurements, these 5 kinds of testing, or 5 issues, you would say that what are the issues if you talk about a medical device. So you would say that there is a functionality issue, there may be performance issue, interoperability issue, risk factor, and safety measurement. These 5 kind of issues have to be addressed while you're doing a testing of a medical device in a laboratories. Most of you people may be knowing about ISO 17025, but I thought, as if I am talking so much about the ISO 17025 and accreditation of medical device laboratory, then it would be beneficial for the attendees that what are the major clauses of the 17025 which a medical device testing laboratory has to look into and has to comply. I mean, it has to comply with all the requirements, but there are major clauses like clause 4, which talk about impartiality and confidentiality, clause 5 structural requirements. Clause 6 is very important. When you have a medical device testing laboratory, you should have the adequate facilities and proper environment requirement as per the test methods and protocols. You should have a trained personals. You should have calibrated equipments and meteorological traceability, which is very important in case of the testing. So far, I think it was an issue, but now the traceability issue has been addressed. So fair enough. The clause 7, the SOP and test methods, measurement uncertainty calculations, calibration, technical records, ensuring validity of test results, proficiency testing. These are the major issues. SOP and test methods, as my previous speakers also talked about, there are some IS standards, and as CDSC was saying that we should refer first to the IS standard, then to other ISO, IEC or ASTM standard. So if we talk about the implants, then in case of implant, they are considered the metal and alloys. And for metal and alloys testing, they are good enough IS standards under which the testing can be done. And another issue is the proficiency testing and inter-laboratory comparison. This is also a vibrant issue in medical device testing. So far, for medical device as such, there is no proficiency testing provider available, but medical device testing laboratory can organize and can participate in inter-laboratory comparison. Then they should have a management system where they need to do an internal audit and management review meeting, and then improvements, methods, etc. So these are the clause 7 requirements. These are the process requirements, basically, that when you are doing the testing. So the clause 7.2 is again very important, as I told, and a previous speaker also talked about selection, verification, validation of method. This has been a burning issue so far in the medical device testing, that what method you have to use, because there is, for as a product as such, there is no such method, but only as a material testing you have the methods. So you have to find out adequately, and you have to select appropriate method for testing of the material. Basically, I'm talking in reference of the ortho implants and other implants also. So 7.2 clause very important. Then how you are handling the test item and implant item in your lab. 7.4 clause. Then 7.6 and evaluation of measurement uncertainty. Then 7.7 clause, ensuring the validity of the results by participating in the proficiency testing or inter-laboratory comparison, or doing intra-laboratory comparison, or doing any other internal functional checks. So these clauses are very important when you are going to have a medical device testing laboratories, and you want to come for accreditation to NABL. So the purpose of showing these slides are that the laboratories who are thinking for obtaining the accreditation, then they should think about complying to such clauses, this which I'm mentioning here, and these are mentioned in 17025 standards. Now, what NABL is doing, if you for medical device sectors, NABL has been very proactive in handholding with all our regulating authorities and ministries to encourage the medical device sector, particularly vocal for local and Atmanirbhar Bharat schemes. We have been continuously discussing with the stakeholders and the regulators to know the exact market scenario for which NABL can contribute to increase the quality of the medical devices. So NABL people have been attending the workshops and seminars, and they are participating in various national, international levels also. The main thing is that we would, at this stage, I would request CDSCO, the Bureau of Indian Standards, they should come up and they should find that what exactly the IS standard, a product specific, implant specific, because this webinar is for implant. So implant specific product standard, if can be prepared, this would be very helpful, because so far the issues in this medical device sector for implant basically is that there are many tests like computer modeling test, then their biocompatibility test, because they are coming in contact with the skin, and so many others. Apart from the mechanical testing, there may be the other tests also. So far there have not been so many studies to authenticate the kind of a test method or kind of a test protocols. So if we are talking about the implant, so we ultimately conclude that there is a mechanical testing is required, the integrity test is required, stability test is required, but there may be other tests required for the benefit of the patient and for the benefit of the healthcare sectors, like long study test may be there, like biocompatibility and irritation test, and some computer simulation, computer modeling test. So I would request CDSCO and the Bureau of Indian Standard and NIPER also, if we can form a joint group where such kind of approach can be adopted to frame product specific test methods. It would be good for the medical device manufacturers and the lab also. Now expand the scope to fulfill the regulatory requirement. This is one thing NABLS has been continuously doing, generating the technical document and establishing assessors pool for conducting assessment for medical device sectors. So this all from NABL side, and I would welcome every medical device manufacturers and every medical device testing laboratory to voluntarily opt for the quality establishment, and then to demonstrate the competence and demonstrate the impartiality, competence, and their capacity to produce the valid test results by going assessment after applying to NABL for the accreditation, because accreditation is very important, very important, because this is the only benchmark which is showing that you have the capacity and capability to perform the testing which is producing the valid test results, and these products are ultimately going in the healthcare sector for the patient. In healthcare sector, we cannot compromise with the quality at all. There is no scope for to compromise. So with this, it's end from my side. I would request the organizers how to stop it. Okay. And I am handing over this to the organizers. Now you take control of this.
Thank you, sir. As we all know, number of orthopedic surgery is increasing every day. Researchers are continuously trying to bring out innovative product into the market. To ensure most of them are successful, the challenges faced while testing should be overcome. So to brief on the same, we have Shri Vivek Mangalvedkar, Director of SH Pitkar Ortho Tools Private Limited, Pune. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think, can you hear me, please?
Yes, you are audible. Yes,
okay.
Please continue.
So, I firstly thank the entire team of NIPER, starting from Dr. Sudhir Kumar. I thank Dr. Prakash Bachani to give me an opportunity to speak on the given subject. And, my mentor is always there, Mr. Rajiv Nath, who keeps supporting through IMED on whatever we speak as an industry. I thank Dr. Ravi Sharma, who has been always influential and he's always active in doing what needs to be done. Having said that, can I request my presentation to be sort of moved on here?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So today I'm going to speak about the challenges in testing of overall orthopedic medical devices. It's, I've been specific in orthopedic because all our life we've been making orthopedic implants, testing them. So I'm going to focus specifically on orthopedic implant appliances and instruments. Next slide, please. So, as said, I'm Vivek. AI-MED is our Association of Indian Medical Device Industry. Rajiv Nath has been here to put forward his thoughts. And, we are represented by the vertical called as OIMA, the Orthopedic Implant Manufacturing Association. Now, let me tell you, OIMA is a group of more than 74, 75 orthopedic implants manufacturers who are completely licensed from CDSCO. So this is a like-minded group which has come together. And the intention of that is for betterment of industry, respond to the call of Atmanirbhar Bharat, respond to the call of Make in India. So whatever I'm going to speak today is on the behalf of IMED and OIMA both. And it's specifically going to discuss orthopedic implants, instruments, and appliances. Next slide. You see, we all know, everybody has spoken till today about, orthopedics is divided into spine, trauma, hip, arthroplasty, arthroscopic products. There are many BIS standards. There are many ISO standards, ASTM standards being regulated. Now, fact of the matter is that the more critical it gets when you get into approval for US FDA and CE, which is under new MDR regulation instead of MDT. And, the compliances are many. Next slide, please. I'm going to put forward a complete list of 31 important standards that are related to testing of implants, appliances, which I'm putting it down. Just before me, Mr. Pankaj Jory spoke about it, and he said somebody is required to compile what is totally required. So this compilation is here. It's about 4 years ago, I was called by Mr. Prakash Bachani to speak on BIS on the standards that are applicable and which are required to be converted into IS standards. And that time I had given him a list of 235 ISO and ASTM standards which needs to be converted into BIS standards. I was misread at that time also, but my intention was if we start buying as an Indian company, having a turnover between 1 and 10 crores, every standard that is available, 234 standards, each one costs no less than 4,000 to 5,000 rupees and not more than 24,000 rupees. Now, if you compile so many standards to be bought over by each company, it is a very, very expensive proposition. It's a very, very expensive proposition. So, the bottom line is that if we really want to look at, we have to look at this as an exercise which becomes economically viable for the whole set of manufacturing device industry. And the fact of the matter is that even today, there are so many ISO standards and so many STM standards which have not become part of the BIS. And unless we get into that, the implementation of all those into the hands of orthopedic industry is going to be a challenge. It's a huge expense. And though we have a large manufacturing base, we have a very good amount of, manufacturing setups. We have reliable manufacturers here. The fact of the matter is their pockets are small, and unless we go out of the way to make their pockets affordable, it's going to be very, very difficult for an industry to survive. So today I'm speaking about 31 important standards that needs to be taken with respect to orthopedic implants, instruments, and appliances. They could be related to raw material standard. They could be related to testing of the specific orthopedic implants. They could be related to orthopedic appliances testing. They could be related to, the packing, the sterilization. They could be related to many other issues, but all of them are required to be sort of catered to if I've got to get my product passed in CDSCO, going little beyond that in US FDA and the CE under MDR regulation. So unless this pack of 31 tests are conducted, there's no way my CE certification is going to get through. And we look at Indian manufacturers are so challenging that if they're given opportunity, they all can rise above. They all can really deliver a wonderful medical device manufacturing setups here, and they could convert the entire global market under their belt. But we need to come forward. We need to find a cheaper way to make these tests available. Putting the test together is not a big deal. It's about getting them at a reasonable price in India, getting them, it's not about one thing. The minute we speak about getting the product tested, we talk about subject and predicate. And each of the predicate that we talk about today, if you see a predicate issue to be, part of regulatory system, you have to buy 6 predicates and give it for a testing, you would realize it is grossly expensive. So my point is not about just putting list of standards. My point is about making the entire testing procedure affordable to all the implant manufacturers in India. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm just running through the list. Go ahead with the next slide. This could be some. So I would like to summarize the current capability of testing in Indian scenario. And I'll go product wise because somebody spoke about the hip testing to be done. Somebody spoke about the knee testing to be done. So I'm going to go section wise to speak about what needs to be done and what are the important tests. And I'm going to summarize them very quickly. So when you talk about a normal trauma implant, we talk about bone plates and screws. There is either a static or a dynamic or a torsional properties to be checked. So we are looking at 4-point bend test or a fatigue test or a torsional test. The challenge here is for CE or US FDA approvals or even for CDSU, you need to have a subject and a predicate, and the subject of 6 numbers each, predicate of 6 numbers each. And please understand, each one of us manufacture no less than 40 to 50 different plates and about 10 to 12 different types of screws. So we are looking at so many numbers of implants to be given for a testing, not only from the subject, from the predicate, which means you need to invest in the predicate devices to those numbers. So if you look at what is the price that you're going to pay for these kind of testings, in India, there are about 2-3 centers who does it, though we do it in-house, but there are many centers who does this. And generally the cost of these plates runs between 12 lakh to 14 lakh rupees. I have got multiple quotations on this. And this is approximate cost of the plates and screws testing today in India. Next slide, please. So we come down to, there are specific tests which are beyond normal testing that we talk about. So they are fretting tests. These are not very commonly done in India, but yes, it is doable. If somebody puts an energy to this, we had to put energy level into ASTM-F 897 before we could proceed with this test. So this testing is not universally carried out with most of the test labs. There could be 1 or 2 available. These are mandatory tests for CE under MDR regulation, which is essential. There's one thing I would like to mention. There was one of the speakers who spoke about, BIS is the first standard that we look for. If it is not ISO, they are trying to add ASTM. I would insist you do that because most of the testing procedures across the globe for orthopedic implants is primarily ASTM standards. They are very limited ISO tests for testing of the implants, testing of the apparatus, testing of the appliances and the instruments. So it is very critical that we incorporate ASTM part of it and make it reasonable for the whole team. Next slide, please. When we come down to nail as a category, there is again a simple static and fatigue test, which is 4-point bend and the fatigue test. And generally, again, with subject and predicate, if you go to a professional test lab, which is NABL accredited, it's going to cost you between 10 and 12 lakh rupees for the whole set of 15, 16 different types of nails that the industry makes. Next slide, please. On spinal, it's little critical. It's not as simple as trauma implants and instruments. I mean, you look at static and dynamic testing, again, it follows as per ASTM 2077. There are load-induced testing, which are by 2267. There are spinal construct testing methods as a whole thing as, combination of rods and hooks and screws and the connectors. And obviously, there are constructs of various models that results into it. There are sub-assemblies for orthodesis, which is as per 1798. So there are very many different structural testings that are required for the spine, especially spine implants, and they're pretty expensive. Next slide, please. These are a few testing examples of the spine that we conducted for ourselves. Next slide, please. Now coming down to hip, which is another sector complete, we have a fatigue test. Here ISO plays a major role. We have femoral head torsion test. We have femoral head pull-out test, which is again as per ASTM. And the corrosion test of hip stem, which is again ASTM, hip stimulator test as per ISO, and the assembly test as per ASTM. So it's a combination. If you see, it is still about 3:2 ratio on the complete testing mechanism on ASTM. For our CE marking devices, we didn't find any laboratory doing this test in India. We had to get this tested abroad, which costed us about 40 lakh rupees. And imagine an Indian company coming out aggressively for doing about 3 to 4 different hip models, the amount of money they will have to invest in getting these testings done. This is large money for a turnover of 10 and 12 crores. I think we all must understand what Mr. Rajiv Nath said. He said this is a very, very small sector. Orthopedic is a very niche sector. We have more than 200 manufacturers out of 75 to 90 have taken a CDSCO license. Now these guys are really struggling hard to go up to improve their standards to the international level. Now, fact of the matter is that unless we make this testing reasonably priced for all of them, make them available in a subsidized form, make predicate device available at the end of the laboratory, the whole thing is not going to work. So it's, if we really have to come up, stand together as an industry, we must have a proposition that is affordable. Next slide, please. Again, arthroscopic testing, we have implant testing of the bone anchors and the sutures, we have suture characterization, we have pull-out testings, we have corrosion testing, and we have degradation testing. And we've tried to work with all testing laboratories in India. We went to everybody, including TUV, and it was corrosion-related test that was 2129, could not be done here. Finally, we had to make our own setup to create that, which took us about 18 months for conducting one test. So it's a huge challenge. For every small organization, creating these kind of setups is just impossible. And unless we arrive at a point where we are able to push this to a level which is made easily available, the industry, it's very difficult for them to come upfront and improve their standards. Next slide, please. These are routine standard tests of torsional and axial pullout. Next slide, please. Now, these were the implant-related tests. You speak of orthopedic implants, you speak of spine, you speak of arthroplasty, you speak of arthroscopy, they were. Going beyond that, there are a number of tests that are required for biocompatibility. We all know, all our implant manufacturing friends, they make it in titanium, they make it in stainless steel, there are few parts in chromium cobalt, there are few spinal implants in PEEK, there are hip implants and knee implants in UHMWP. Now, imagine each one is required to do a biocompatibility test. And we all know there are multiple labs that do biocompatibility tests in India. And at no place it is less than 15 lakh rupees for the whole of bunch. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 type of material to be tested for biocompatibility test, you're looking at 15 lakhs into 6, more than 90 lakhs or amount which is close to a crore, only to get the biocompatibility test done. For a turnover of 8 crores and 10 crores, this is just irrational, not possible to do it. And then the shortcut starts. So, we have to create an environment where people will not think of shortcuts. The manufacturer will be very happy to arrive at a point where he is able to reach to a laboratory, and he should get it done because he wants to behave it that way. So we need to create an infrastructure which is very easy, very affordable to the entire testing mechanism. Next slide, please. Come down to packaging. Many of us do sterile implant packaging. And for CE, again, we were required to do a packaging system testing. There were 2 laboratories, one in Mumbai and one in Chandigarh, probably did these tests. There may be more, I don't know, but I'm aware about the two laboratories doing this test and confirming to standards. So bottom line is each of the carton for each product that costed us 50,000 rupees. So you're looking at probably 10 or 12 different kind of implants to be tested. You are going to multiply this. Next slide, please. So this was the packaging reporting that we got. Next slide. Next slide again. It basically, this packaging shows that if your material is taken from my factory, first a truck comes and takes it to a warehouse. From warehouse, it is taken to the airport. From airport, it takes a route of air. Then from there, it again is taken up by the truck to the warehouse and then delivery. So whatever happens during this transit period, there are machinery setups that actually measures how these apparatus are going to deal with what kind of damages the packing is going to have, the inner packing, the middle packing, the outer packing, and eventually the testing is conducted. So these test records are very expensive and have limited facilities to do that. Next slide, please. Last but not the least is sterilization of medical devices. And you're aware that every product that we make need to have bioburden check very routinely. Every month we have to do a bioburden of the specific areas that are required for it. Apart from that, after doing a sterilization, nowadays there is a requirement that you have to have a testing of the product at the end of 5 years. So that's a fastest protocol. So you take your apparatus, go to the fastest protocol and get that done, which is very expensive again. So each of the product needs to go through this protocols and get the product tested. It is pretty expensive. And there are very fixed 2 or 3 laboratories which does this kind of activities. So sterilization, post-sterilization, pre-sterilization, the bioburden loads, all are very important. Then they need to be contributed for doing a routine test. Next slide. I would like to conclude this way that as an industry, we have come a long way. As we have had a call of Make in India, and probably every company in orthopedics has responded to Make in India call from the Prime Minister. AIMED has been working great guns on the basic bringing up the medical device industry per se. The bottom line is that if we really want to go up, the regulation is one part. I appreciate regulation is a very, very important thing. But going beyond regulation, if we are making regulation as part of life, a way of life, then the testing mechanism cannot be an automated process. It has to be effort-generated process. We need to arrive at a point where the entire system is made available to a manufacturing setup. Today, CE is being transformed from MDD to MDR. We all know how difficult it is. But bottom line is the local manufacturer does not find it difficult. We speak about ISO 17025 all through the laboratories. Bottom line is ISO ISO 17025 should be made available through number of certifying agencies. Right now, there are 5 and 7 starting from TUV to DNV, and half of them do not comply today even with the quotations. Are we able to arrive at a point where some government organization within the country takes lead to certify these standards in India? We need to look at somebody giving ISO 13485. Today, my yearly cost is 6 lakh rupees. Can we have a government organization coming forward and say, we are going to certify ISO 13485. We are going to certify ISO 17025 for the laboratories. If this happens, I'm sure every manufacturer would like to go for it because he doesn't want to set up. Bottom line is that we really need to create an infrastructure if our medical device industry has to travel up. I know Vizag, there is a wonderful setup that has come up, but even certain tests were not doable in Vizag too, in spite of having such a best equipment and best testing mechanism. So bottom line is we need to identify, we all need to come together. As an industry, I promise you on part of IMED and OIMA both, that we are willing to come forward to help. We are willing to come forward with whatever knowledge we have to share it with you. We are willing to come forward and put forward all the details that you need. It will be in the compiled form. We are capable of doing that. Bottom line is we need support. We need all the testing to be subsidized. We want all standards to be subsidized for our industry set. And I assure you, we all will react very positively to the whole thing, and we will really then make in India successful. Thank you very much. I hand over the mic to the team of organizers.
Thank you, sir. Now the floor is open for question and answer session. All the participants are requested to unmute themselves and ask the questions if they have.
Yes, good evening again. See, just for the information of Vivek as well as all audiences, I would like to inform that, of course, I am with NIPER now, but being the ex-head of a medical equipment department in BIS, for the kind information that all BIS standards, Indian standards, from last more than 1.5 years, these are free of cost. And as far as adopted standards are concerned, which are the from ISO or IC, those are only price publication, but very minimal price that can be purchased on site itself. No need to go for individual office also. It can be purchased online itself, and there is a portal from which it can be downloaded. And the cost of these standards is very minimal, maybe less than 1/10 or 1/15 of the original cost of the ISO standards. So these are we are adopting, and for the information of the audience, that we got the list of about 455 medical devices from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and with the help of the core group, for which IMED was also the member, and we already formulated, BIS already formulated more than about 80 to 85% till I got retired, and those standards are still applicable for medical device as well as for other applications. So that was also, and as far as the laboratory is concerned, I appreciate, as you said, Vizag, yes, AMTZ has done a lot of work in the field of medical devices, and they are already certifying for PPE equipments. But I think more and more efforts will be made from our side as well as from others to come forward for the testing of medical devices. Thank you. So,
So we have one question in chat box for Dr. Kamal Bachani. And the question is like how we can ensure that all the implants can tolerate MI scans in future. And this is by Mr. Sashi Sinha.
Right now, this does pose a problem whenever non-standardized implants are the thing, because sometimes end user doesn't know what kind of implants have been used. So for standardization sake, right now all titanium implants are MRI compatible. So they are being used whenever titanium implants are there. The MRI compatibility is not an issue. But when the make of the implant is not available, as has been pointed out, like many times even the end user, the patient also doesn't know what kind of implants is being used. That then it does cause a problem, and sometimes we may have to resort to coiling and other methods. This thing. So maybe if we can start using the testing of the implants regarding magnetism, that can standardize the procedure.
Thank you, sir. Again, I can see one more question, and the question is from NABL. And is NABL can issue scope with the name of implant name like bone plate, bone screw, because there is no clarification in NABL 120 like that. So
yes, it is.
I think
Yes, yeah, it is true. I also addressed this issue in my presentation. Okay. That currently in NABL
Mr. Pankaj Jory, I think you can answer this.
Yeah, I am answering. Yeah, I also tried to address this issue when I was giving the presentation, that in NABL 120 currently there is no definite group for medical devices under mechanical testing. There is a mechanical discipline, and within mechanical discipline there's a performance or safety testing, and within performance safety testing there are again subgroups, but implant is not there, because that's what I asking the other regulating bodies and other experts, because medical device they are also subjected to a complete set of testing. So until unless it is not proven, we are not giving accreditation for implant as such. But for the mechanical testing, you can apply under the subgroup others. But we will not give as an implant. It is under metal and alloys. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Other question is that, do NIPER have finished NABL ISO 17025 accreditation?
Yes. Yes, we are already in the verge of getting an NABL certification for ISO 17025 as well as for 13485. And just for the help of just for information audience, I will tell you that 13485, as was told, nobody has got the certification. There is some organization in Bombay, they already got 13485 from BIS itself, and they already followed one more standard called 23485. But for medical devices, 13485, already there is certification from BIS.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, for Dr. Ravi Sharma, there is one comment as well as one question. That is, thank you for the well-explained presentation on MD rules in India. And there is a question for the PMCF study of devices which is not investigational devices and have predicate available in India as well as globe for more than 5 years, and also having medical devices 9 license for the device under study. So can we go with EC approval and CTRI registration, or do we need to go for filing application in form medical devices 22 for the PMCF study for such device?
This is a good question, because if the device is not approved in India for marketing, we don't know the safety parameters and the effectiveness of the device. But having said that, if the device is not under regulation and the importer is importing the device for the last 5 years or 6 years, we like to see the post-marketing surveillance data of the particular product. If there is no quality issue, then they can follow the regular pathway instead of the investigational medical device. But if there is a quality issue, then definitely they have to apply in MD22 to prove the safety and effectiveness of the product.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question to Dr. Kamal Bachani, as having huge experience in orthoplasty. So, sir, can you discuss some of the challenges faced in cemented joint orthoplasty with respect to the commercially available bone cements?
In fact, nowadays the trend is what is moving from cemented to uncemented arthroplasty, and better new modalities of implants are available in terms of longevity. Earlier, cement was used to be considered as gold. Cemented hip, particularly femoral arthroplasty, used to be considered as a gold standard in order to compare. Like any new implant we used to have in terms of clinically, we can see it from the point of view of longevity, lasting of the implants. That used to be the gold standard. But now we have comparable uncemented implants, which are increasingly being used. And the reason being, there is bone preservation is there, the revision becomes better, and demand of the patients, the longevity of the persons as such is increasing. So we are getting patients in comparatively which may require revision or re-revision surgeries. Keeping all these demands in mind, now in fact there is a increasing use of uncemented implants, especially in the hip arthroplasty is being used. So that is the thing. So cemented as such, we are using still cemented in India, especially because we do have a large geriatric population, and cost effectiveness is one of the important issue. So cemented implants have already shown long-term survivability, especially on the femoral side, and we are using currently both in terms of the techniques of cementing have improved. Now most of us are using third generation or even in smaller setups, even second generation cementing techniques, and they are giving good long-term survivability. So that is there. Does it address, or you want something specific?
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Mr. Ravi Kant. That if the device is approved 5 years ago by CDSCO, then do we need to have DCGI approval for PMCF study after having ethics committee approval?
What question says, I mean, this product is already approved 5 years back. Then it will not be considered as a new medical device, because medical devices rules were implemented from 1st January 2018. And if 5 years back the license was already issued, then they have to come in the new rules requirements. So it means this is not a new product. The license has already been given. For MD22, the clinical investigation or clinical investigation protocol, the application has to be filed only in those cases where the product is not yet approved. That is absolutely new. Then CDSCO refer this proposal to the expert committee. A fair chance is to be given to the manufacturer or the importer to justify the safety and efficacy data, and based on the data, the permission is granted to conduct clinical investigation. If the safety and efficacy data is adequate, and if experts feel that there is an urgent need of the product, then the condition of the clinical investigation may be waived off. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have last question from CDSCO, that we are already applied for CDSCO accreditation with current NABL scope, but they raised an query that they will accept scope of implant testing with implant name only. As Mr. Pankaj told that there is no option, so please let me know what should we do for CDSCO accreditation.
So I think this question is pertaining to the registration of the medical device laboratory, which needs to be registered with us. As per the law, they have taken the NABL accreditation for the drugs. but not the medical devices. How can we register? So Mr. Sanjay, you have to answer this question. You have to make some arrangement, or you have to give some scope for the medical devices, whether laboratory is capable to do the testing of any syringe, any catheter, any cochlear implant, or any orthopedic implants. Or what do you want? Or you want that if they have already obtained the NABL accreditation for drugs, can we register them? Certainly not. They have to take the product scope accreditation from the NABCB. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lastly, I will call upon Dr. Govinda Kapushetty, Technical Manager and Assistant Professor, Department of Medical Devices, NIPER-Ahmedabad, to conclude the session with vote of thanks.
Thank you, Mayuri. Good evening, all. As we have reached end part of the session, on behalf of NIPER-Ahmedabad, I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to this webinar on testing of medical devices, orthopedic implants, and its accessories. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to technical session chairs Dr. Sudhir Kumar and Shri Rajiv Nath for taking precious time out of their busy schedule to grace this event. I also extend my generous thanks to all the esteemed speakers of the today's webinar, Dr. Ravi Sharma, Sri Vivek Mangalvedkar, Dr. Kamal Bachani, Sri Pankaj Jori, and Dr. Ravinder Singh for their enlightening talks, motivation, and presence. I would like to extend my gratitude to all the delegates from industry, hospitals, and academia for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. A special thanks to Mr. Prakash Bachani, Scientific Advisor, NIPER-A, in association with Department of Medical Devices, NIPER-A, to organize this webinar even amid the pandemic and providing immense support to make it successful. I must not forget to thank Dr. Akshay Srivastava, Administration of NIPER-Ahmedabad, IT team of NIPER-Ahmedabad, Mr. Tushar and Mr. Ashish, and our anchor team, Ms. Tejashwini and Mayuri, for working hard to make this webinar successful. With this warm word, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you all for their valuable time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. So we hope we keep on meeting in future also with your